Hello.
Hello, Marcus.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. What's going on?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Just, actually, just got back to the house. My wife is digging up our whole side yard, drenched in sweat with my kids. So I'm like, I'm gonna go outside in the air conditioning and make a phone call.
Sounds good. So I will ask then, what was it that made you go to St. Louis?
I met my wife on the Shadows Fall Five Finger Death Punch tour. I guess that was 2009 going into 2010.
Okay.
Just randomly in a grocery store in Kansas City. And she's originally from the St. Louis area, so once we ended up getting married, about a little while after that, I was kind of bouncing between Boston and St. Louis. But still on the road a bunch. So for her to kind of relocate at the time didn't make a lot of sense since I wasn't really going to be home. And then we just sort of settled here for a little bit, waiting to see where things would go. And once I kind of came off the road, it just kind of became permanent from there. Definitely, it was a big change for me because I've never lived anywhere besides Boston. It was also a lot less expensive to live in St. Louis compared to Boston. So that was nice. Really, I miss the ocean, man. I miss the ocean. I miss going to Red Sox and Patriots games, but at least I can still see it on TV. And we travel back at least once a year, if not more. So
okay, it's a good reason.
Yeah, it's usually if you relocate it halfway across the country, there's usually a lady involved.
It's true. I'm from LA originally, and I live in Vegas. So, I'm closer to the coast. It's 4 or 5 hours away if I want it, but I understand missing the ocean a lot.
I'd never been landlocked before. I didn't think it would be a big deal, but I grew up going to the beach all the time, and all that. And you just kind of forget, and then when it's gone, it's like, oh man, the river is just not the same.
It isn't. And I think people that are in that part of the country, they don't really understand. They like going to the beach, but they think of it as a vacation. Whereas when you're from the beach, it's your life.
Exactly. Totally.
Let's talk about Downpour, how that came together, and I know you have a history with Derek already, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've known Derek for a way long time, going back just through the Boston music scene. He ended up helping out Shadows Fall a ton right after our first drummer, the Knife, Dave Germain, left the band, and did some fill-in touring for us and actually recorded the Dead World EP with us. And I've always been a huge fan of his style. He's got all the metal chops, but he's totally a rock and roll drummer.
Yeah.
He's got this just great groove, and so, we've always been in touch. Then he ended up playing with Unearthed, and we, see him on tour and all that. I also knew the other guys in Downpour, Matt and Pete, through other local bands. Like Matt played with the band Kanai for a while, and Pete played in this band Birchill Dam and a few others that I, either played shows with or at least had gone and seen. So we all knew each other. And when Derek first approached me, it was kind of, Shadows Fall was kind of winding down from being a full-time touring thing. And at first, I wasn't really, too sure if I really wanted to kind of jump back into anything, and there was going to be some distance involved. And then he sent me the instrumental, versions of some of the songs. I was like, oh, well, yeah, I got to get into this, I was like, hold on, I didn't know this is what we were talking about. And what I loved about it is there was a lot of traditional metal influence on it, but there was just a different kind of groove than what I'd been doing in the past. There was a little more openness and experimentation and a little more atmosphere to it as well. And it had a slight, we're all a bunch of really goofy, happy guys, but it had a very underlying darkness to it that I really dug.
Yeah.
And so and writing to it happened super quickly and naturally, where the ideas started flowing as I was listening to it the first few times, and that was a sign that all right, this is kind of meant to be. And we were also on the same page about we want to record an amazing record, write incredible songs, and not worry about anything else besides that first. We weren't worried about getting a record deal. We weren't worried about trying to get out and play shows. We just wanted to craft a great record and fine-tune the songs. So we did a lot of stuff kind of virtual at first. They'd email me stuff. I'd email demos back. I got a little home set up and would record vocal ideas and send it back. And then finally, once we had enough material, I flew out. We did a bunch of rehearsals, and we actually recorded the first demo the first night we jammed.
Awesome.
So things were really happening quick and naturally. then unfortunately everyone's life's gotten away, and we were kind of like not the most, we didn't want to get into the business side of things, and what happened was everything sort of just stalled out for a couple of years, We were just like, oops, kind of forgot to put this out, The record was finished, we were all really psyched with it, the mixes came back great, and then it just sort of got put on the back burner while I had my second kid, and Derek was changing jobs, and all this stuff was happening, and it just kind of got tough to get on the same page. And then finally, earlier this year, we were like, all right, guys, it is going to be a shame if this never sees the light of day. We leaked a few songs, people were digging those, so we were like, all right, we're going to buckle down, get a team around us, and get this thing done. So I'm psyched it's finally seeing the light of day.
Me too. I already did the review of it. I think you guys already shared it on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. You actually retweeted it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm super stoked. Of course, you not being a regular part of music has kind of been, there's been a void there. And I'm sure you probably feel the same a little bit, like you miss being out in it a little bit.
Oh. Totally. I'm always going to have those creative juices flowing, and it was good to have an outlet again. But it was also nice to not have an agenda, because the thing, Shadows Fall, as much as we enjoyed the creative process and the live performances, it was our full-time living, and, so everything has the caveat of a business plan involved with it. This was kind of nice to have just no pressure, no agenda, but also get to make, some great music. So, but I do totally miss that side of it. Not as much the touring and living with a bunch of sweaty dudes in a bus full time, but I did miss the creative side of it. So to be able to do that again was huge. And it's even, having that outlet is even nicer for like my family, because they're like, cool, yeah, go yell into a microphone instead of yelling at us. You need to get these things out.
All right, tell me creatively, from your perspective anyway, the differences between Downpour and Hell Night.
Hell Night is a very raw punk rock of attitude, short songs that we record before we have the time to even think about them. It's like a complete just furnace blast, and those. It's funny because when I first got to St. Louis, I wasn't really looking to jam around town or start anything new. But one of the first bands I saw was Hell Night with their original singer, who happened to be a friend of a bunch of people I know as well as my wife, and we went down to see him, and I was blown away. I was like, damn, this is like Black Flag meets like, fucking Old Caius or something. I didn't even know. I was like, this is awesome, And when Mike ended up leaving the band, the rest of the guys who I skate with the guitar player all the time, we go skateboarding all the time, he just mentioned, like, hey, man, want to come and jam? I was like, this is the only scenario where I would, like, actually join a band here. It was, like, a band I already loved that, like, I already knew all the dudes, It was, like, easy, perfect. And, again, it's pretty, like, agenda-free, where we play a show every other month, every 3 months, and keep it pretty local. And the recordings, like I said, we'll write 5 tunes and in a month and then go and record them at the end of that month, so they never get like stale. We just like go in and blast them out, and it's a blast, but it's totally different. With Downpour, there's more of a definitely more of a technical side playing wise for sure. There's more of a metal sort of production to it. It's a little more gloss to it, and I get to stretch out a lot melodically. Whereas Hell Night there's a little bit of singing, but it's mostly just balls out screaming and or at least yelling. Whereas Downpour, I really got to try out melody-wise a lot of ideas and approaches and techniques I hadn't even really touched on in Shadows Fall. So that was something. If I was going to do the Downpour stuff, I wanted to do something I'd never done before. But also with the Hell Night, it's kind of like that. Maybe some of the stuff I did in my early days when I was more of a punk rock kid, I was like that. But wasn't really doing anything like that with Shadows Fall either. So I get lucky. I had to cover that whole spectrum of heavy music between the projects.
Sure. Death Ray Vision, was that kind of like a loose continuation of Overcast?
Yeah, kind of. It was 3/5 Overcast, and basically Mike D had those songs. He'd actually been working on demos for some potential Cro-Mag songs that he was writing with John Joseph's way back, and it never really happened. So he had a bunch of riffs and hit me up and was like, "Yeah, let's put out a hardcore record." I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." And that was a blast, man. We did play some shows, you know, put out a cool record. They're actually continuing on with a new singer these days just because they wanted to be able to play shows a little more frequently. And the commute was 1,500 miles, you know, so it was a little difficult to get the practice and the shows. So I'm glad that they're kind of keeping it going with this dude Jeff, who's a friend of mine who lives in Massachusetts. So they're going to keep that thing rolling. Yeah, it was a blast at the time. We played some awesome shows.
Did you throw any Overcast songs into the set, or was it just pure Death Ray Vision?
We did Grifter at the end of the sets, especially in like New England. If we were playing New England, we were like, all right, we're gonna go for the cheap pop, throw in the old Overcast song at the end of the set, you know. Like, so that was really about it. We jammed on a couple of covers of other hardcore bands, but we busted out like the one Overcast tune because I mean, literally 3/5 of us were there. Like, fuck, we all know it. Fuck it, we'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense. I mean, even when I saw it first happening, you know, the first promos and all that, I was like, it's just Overcast, you know, like, and it's not a bad thing. It was like, hell yeah, you know, like, cool. So we'll kind of take it back to Overcast then. You redid, you re-recorded songs and all that, and then you put it out 10 years ago. Was that meant to just be the one-time thing? Like,
yeah, you know, we talked after that about writing songs. It's kind of gotten to the point, though, where it's gone so long that I doubt we ever will. And also, none of us really write that way anymore. We'd have to, like, pretend we were writing Overcast songs. You know what I mean? Like,
you're going back to being 20 years old.
Exactly, and we were super spastic back then. Like, we didn't like to play a riff more than like 1.5 times, you know, in a song, you know, like before the next idea came. So even when we were writing Death Ray stuff, we were like, yeah, this is more where our heads are at, even when it comes to hardcore, than like trying to make it Overcast and just force it in there. And there was like certain things with Overcast. It was always tuned to E standard, you know, it was never drop tuned. And our drummer had such a different approach to heavy music that made it really stand out. And so, like, without those kind of elements, it would be tough. You know, we plan on playing shows whenever a great opportunity pops up. Still, we're all still super close friends. And whenever we do get together and play like a random festival or a random like weekend, it's always so much fun. We get so many dudes out of Mosh retirement and like, you know, like watch all the old guys out there stretching, you know, like the knee braces coming out. So it's always a blast, but nothing planned right now, but we always kind of keep that door open.
What was it that made Overcast kind of break up in the first place? You know, it was like 98.
It was 97. We've been doing it since I was 15, I think, when we started. Jason was 14. And it was one of those things where we've just been doing it for a while. And everyone, you know, guys are starting to get into college or different stuff. And it was tough at that time to do anything as a hardcore band without just completely struggling, you know, whether it was financially or just, you know, even physically. You know, we did a few tours that were just, I mean, they were tests in endurance, you know, and it was a blast. But you can do that stuff when you're like 20, you know, like when you're 18, you know. It's weird because we always had kind of felt like a band that influenced other bands, but never kind of got a ton of due at the time. And I kind of had a feeling, I'm like, we're going to break up, and everyone's going to be like, why are you breaking up? We're like, well, why didn't you go to the shows when we were a band? You know, like,
sure.
And that's kind of exactly what happened. So, but we also didn't see the whole metalcore explosion coming or any of that. And it's hilarious that out of that band, you know, Shadows Fall and Killswitch Engage and all these bands that went on to like get nominated for Grammys and tour the world and all this shit came out of this little hardcore band from Massachusetts that like couldn't draw like, you know, 50 people out of town.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was, we'll get into that here in a minute, but I'm sure that was absolutely the last thing you ever expected, you know?
Oh, totally. We didn't see that shit coming, you know, especially at that time. Like, you know, like, I remember when I first got into Shadows Fall, we were like, well, we're pretty much doomed to, like, not make money because we have guitar solos, you know, because at the time, like, the only heavy was, like, new metal. We're like, if we had a DJ solo, maybe we'd have a chance, you know. But, but then things, you know, like, luckily, you know, people's ears turned back towards more traditional heavy metal, which was a beautiful thing, and we were able to kind of ride that wave.
Which is fantastic.
Yep.
You guys, you know, along with Killswitch and Unearth and God Forbid and all of them, like, just changed the game, and it felt right. You know, I mean, that's the era I grew up with. I'm 31, so, like, I was there for the whole transition of the alternative metal of the 90s into what happened with metalcore and thrash coming back and all that stuff. So, how did you get the Shadowfall gig? Other than, you know, knowing a couple of the guys in the band and all that.
That's pretty much where it started. Like, on the last ever Overcast tour, we took Shadowfall out, like right after kind of Somber Eyes had come out, and I was always a fan. I'd known all of those guys from even their bands before Shadowfall. Like, you know, like Matt was in a death metal band that we used to play with, and Paul was in this band Push Button Warfare we used to play with, and, you know, John was in Aftershock. So we all knew each other even before they became Shadowfall. And then once, you know, we played a ton of shows together between Overcast and Shadowfall. So once things didn't work out with Phil, they approached me, and, you know, again, it was also like I just come out of a band that I'd been in since I was 15 years old and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I think the first demo they played me of new stuff was the song Serenity and most of Crushing Belial, and I was like, God damn! I was like, okay, but yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, let me see what I can do. And I recorded a couple demos at Zeus's with to those songs, and then everyone was like, yeah, man, if you're down, you got the job. I was like, oh man, you know, and that was kind of how it happened from there.
And then there's the. I'm gonna get your validation on that because I know it was kind of a thing, but it didn't go anywhere. You almost joined Killswitch after Jesse left. Kind of. Well, they asked.
Not really. Like, yeah, Mike kind of was joking. It was like, I don't know anyone else who can do it. And I was like, I do. And we were actually IMing on AOL Instant Messenger. And he's like, man, you know, we need to find somebody who can sing and scream and do all blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, 2 words, man. Howard fucking Jones. I was like, well, I guess that's 3, but, you know, and he's like, yeah, well, we don't, you know, he's still with Blood of the Chet. I'm like, dude, just call Howard, you know, like, just do it. And so, you know, that amazingly worked out as good as it did. And then they got lucky that where things worked out where Jesse was able to come back, because I was joking with them. If you get a third singer, it becomes Blaze Bayley, Iron Maiden, or Gary Cherone, Van Halen. Like, you got lucky enough where you found a second singer that was, like, amazing. Like, because, you know, that you could do that. You could go from Paul Di'Anno to Bruce Dickinson. You could go from David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar. After that, yeah, no, man, it's Gary Cherone and Blaze Bayley. Like, that's tough, you know. Like, very luckily, Jesse came back and it all worked out for him, because, you know, I don't know what they would have done.
At least among my friends, we were all kind of betting that it was maybe Tommy Vex, but personally, I was hoping Jesse, because Jesse's my guy.
Yeah, the thing is, Tommy would have been able to handle it, like, without a doubt, and probably added a different element, but it's just tough to have a fan base go through that third singer stage, you know, it is tough, and it worked out great for everybody, because, Jesus, Tommy Vex just got a platinum record for the Zombie single with Bad Wolves, so, like, everybody landed in the spots they're supposed to.
Yeah, I agree. Shadowfall. The Grammy stuff started coming after War Within, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Do you remember what you were doing when you first heard that you were even considered?
Yeah, it was pretty shocking when I was on the road, and our manager called us, and it wasn't even on the potential radar. You know, we noticed that, like, a few kind of more traditional metal bands had been, you know, nominated in the metal category, whereas before it used to just be like, whatever Radio Rock had some guitar, you know, would get, like, in the metal category, you know?
Yeah.
And then it started switching a little bit, you know, with the Slipknots of the world getting in there, and then, but, man, we did not expect that, and it was pretty shocking, and a total blast the first time we went there. We didn't know what to expect, you know? It was definitely cool to kind of sneak in the back door of the Grammys. I do remember the second time when we got nominated for Redemption on Threads of Life, we were actually on tour with Machine Head in Europe, and both us and them got nominated, you know, that year, and we were all together when we got the announcement. Just had a rager, you know. Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, you never think about a Grammy when you're, like, in a kind of an underground band or get a nomination. But it was cool to finally be able to tell, like, my grandparents something that, like, they understood. You know, like, oh, yeah, you're in a band. That sounds cool. Like, no, we got nominated for Grammy. Like, oh, you're in a real band.
Yeah.
You know.
now you're legitimate.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool to be nominated twice for sure, and just to be able to say 2-time Grammy-nominated artist, you know.
Yeah.
Just a funny thing to have on the resume that was unexpected. But I will say that the parties afterwards and even the stuff before the actual ceremony is the fun part. The ceremony, man, it's long, and there's no food, and there's no drinks allowed in the forum the entire time, and you're just like, I'm starving, and all I want is a beer, and it's like, now, you know, some country dudes up there singing about checking people for ticks or like some awful song, and you're like, come on, man. Like, yeah, it was a Brad Paisley. Well, granted, we saw some cool shit, too. We saw the Morris Day and the Time reunion, which was amazing. Paul McCartney played a song. That was super cool. But, man, it's a long night. You're just like, I want to go to, like, Del Taco and get some food and then grab a beer, you know.
Definitely. Retribution. Mm-hmm. Do you think it totally flew under the radar?
You know, everything kind of after Threads of Life, you know, between Retribution, Fire from the Sky, we definitely lost some of the hype machine behind us. I know we took way too long, and some of it was business-wise, between The War Within and Threads of Life, and then between Threads of Life and Retribution, there was another long pause, and a lot of it was, you know, working out behind-the-scenes record deal stuff, and who had rights to what, and, you know, like all that shit, and it definitely took some of the wind out of the sails. But, you know, that record, especially, My Demise is one of my favorite songs we've ever written. Like, I still love that one. But, you know, it was definitely, something that probably didn't maybe get the attention that maybe the other ones had gotten at the time, you know, but it is what it is.
That's what I would think. You know, whatever it was that was going on with the media and everything, like it, I think it's, I mean, you don't have a bad album, so, but I think it's just as good as anything else that you had done. And
yeah, I think it stands right there with our whole catalog for sure, but, and there's even some stuff off of Fire from the Sky that I think is right up there too, but you know how it is when you get that long into a thing and there's a bunch of new bands, and that was also sort of the deathcore thing was taking over.
Yeah.
We probably just weren't half as heavy as what some of the stuff that was happening. Which was never our goal. We never tried to be the heaviest band in the world. We always just wanted to kind of show all the stuff we were into, which is a lot more thrash and traditional metal and stuff like that. So, you know, it's part of the game, though.
Was there a turning point, like a specific moment, or was it just lots of little things that led to we're just kind of going to cut off the touring and kind of go on hiatus?
Yeah, you know, it was more a lot of little things, but also like a lot of life stuff. Like I had my first kid when we were still touring for, actually before Fire from the Sky came out and stuff like that. So like that changed everything for me. Being away from home was really difficult. You know, then John got the opportunity with Anthrax, and you're splitting time between both bands for a little while, and that was getting harder to juggle. Paul had a kid. Jason actually ended up getting pancreatitis and getting sick for a little while, and we just knew, we're like, man, we've been going so hard for almost 20 years. It was time to like kind of reflect and take the foot off the pedal for a minute. But also in the industry, if you didn't tour, there was no way to make a living off of it. Like in the earlier days, you could take time off on the road and you're still selling records and there's still, you know, money in that.
Yeah.
Whereas by the time 2012 or so, like that shit was dead. You know, like you had to go out there and spend 8 months on the road. And I had a second kid on the way and was like, I can't do this. Like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, and John was offered the full-time Anthrax thing, and that's just a, you know, huge opportunity and like a childhood favorite band of his. So it was just, it was getting tougher to kind of find the reasons to be able to justify it outside of like, hey, let's just go have some fun and play a bunch of shows. I was like, shit, yeah, but then I got bills and I got kids and you know.
the business totally took over.
Yeah, totally. So it was tough, but it also, you know, we didn't want to start to. It seems like a lot of metal bands, when that starts happening, all of a sudden there's like 2 dudes left from the original kind of core lineup, and we didn't want to start just replacing everybody. You know, we already were having fill-in guitar players when John was gone. We had fill-in bass players when Paul had his kid. You know, and all those dudes helped out a ton and were great players. Like, you know, this dude Mikey T and this dude Ed who filled in on bass, and Felipe who killed it on guitar. It just wasn't the dudes. You know, the dudes we kind of fought all the battles with. You know.
Yeah. I agree. And I'm as sad as I am that, you know, it's not happening still. I'm glad that it didn't continue on like that with, you know, like a whole new lineup and stuff.
It seems to happen a lot in metal these days. It really does. And which always amazes me that there's that many people who can learn all these crazy songs though too, especially in death metal. Like there's always like dudes who are in like 8 different death metal bands. Like how the fuck do you remember all those riffs?
I know. I know. It's ridiculous. What would be the right band that you grew up loving that needed a singer and you joined? Who would that band be?
Short list, there'd probably be a couple. Testament would be on the short list. Yeah, Testament would definitely be one of them. The New York hardcore band Leeway would be one of them. And, financially, I'd put Metallica probably first. But,
of course.
Well, Testament would definitely be high on the list because I just always loved Chuck Billy's songwriting and approach and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck's powerful.
Still, with catchiness. You know, catchiness to it. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you spreading the word about the record and for the interview as well, man, and the killer review. Next time you're moshing in St. Louis, let me know.
For sure. It might be sometime next year. I visit Arkansas quite often, so.
Oh, nice. Awesome, man. Cool, brother. Well, thanks again for spreading the word, man. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you calling me, man.
Indeed. Take care, man.
Thank you, Brian.